My boyfriend's racing buddy said women don't belong on the track, not realizing I hold the track record. Lewis and I had been dating 3 months when he invited me to his friend's track day. My hands were shaking because these guys were like his brothers, and I wanted to make a good impression. Lewis knew I raced Time Attack competitively. He'd even come to some of my events. But as I parked my stock Civic between their modified cars, I realized he'd never mentioned it to them. They're gonna love you, he said, squeezing my hand. I nodded, deciding instantly to keep my racing background quiet. Sometimes it's better to observe before revealing your cards. The moment we walked up to his friends gathered around their heavily modified cars, I knew I'd made a mistake. 5 guys stood comparing lap times, and their eyes slid right past me like I wasn't there. Lewis introduced me, but Thomas barely glanced over before asking if I was spectating. When I mentioned bringing my car to run some laps, the conversation stopped completely. Thomas finally looked at my Civic parked between his caged M3 and someone's track-prepped GTR. That's adorable, he said, smirking. The others chuckled and turned back to their cars. 20 minutes later, during the driver's meeting, the dismissiveness turned into condescension. One of them explained the flags to me twice, speaking slowly like teaching a child about colors. The checkered flag explanation came with hand gestures. That means the session is over, he said. You come in when you see it. I bit my tongue hard enough to taste copper while nodding politely. Lewis stared at his shoes. Things escalated when we returned to the paddock. Thomas popped my hood without asking permission. He waved the gathering group over like he'd found something hilarious. He immediately announced his findings about my stock brake pads. She'll cook them in 2 laps, he said. The laughter grew louder when someone noticed my street tires. Another guy said Lewis should teach me basics before bringing me to a real track. This isn't cars and coffee, sweetheart, he added. Lewis shifted uncomfortably but stayed silent while Thomas continued his inspection. He made increasingly personal attacks about how I probably picked the blue car to match my Instagram feed. Let me guess, it has a cute name too? The technical humiliation intensified when they started listing everything wrong with my car to each other. They talked over my head like I was invisible. Someone pulled out their phone to calculate my potential lap times. They made bets about whether I even knew what octane fuel I used. $20 says she puts regular, Thomas announced. The attacks on our relationship began next. Thomas turned to Lewis and questioned why he was letting me on track in this death trap. He suggested I should be in the grandstands where girlfriends belonged. You know she's gonna hold up the entire run group, right? Everyone laughed about how I'd be a rolling roadblock ruining his reputation. The physical boundary crossing started when Thomas climbed into my driver's seat without permission. He adjusted everything while declaring I was sitting wrong and probably couldn't reach the pedals. No wonder women can't drive, he muttered. My fists clenched white when he revved my cold engine hard. The sound made me wince. The rage truly built when he put his hand over mine on the gear shift. His palm was sweaty and possessive. He demonstrated how a real shift should feel while explaining that the clutch was the pedal on the left. You have to be firm with it, he said. After I pulled away and said I knew how to drive, he laughed. He got out and slapped a student driver, keep back 500 feet sticker on my bumper. The group howled with laughter and took photos. The breaking point came when someone suggested taking bets on how many laps before I spun out. I got 50 on 3 laps, Max, one shouted. Thomas grabbed my keys from my hand. He dangled them above his head. He announced he'd move my car to spectator parking where it belonged. When I reached for them, he tossed them to another friend. Keep away from the wannabe racer, he called out. They laughed and threw them between each other. My vision went red with fury as they treated me like a joke. The track photographer walked by and Thomas loudly called out not to waste memory card space on me. Save it for the real drivers, he said. The photographer stopped and stared at me with recognition dawning on his face. Aren't you Ms. Rivera? He asked, making Thomas roll his eyes dismissively. The photographer pulled out his phone showing them his Instagram. There I was holding a first place trophy at this exact track last season. The paddock went completely silent. Thomas claimed it wasn't real, but his voice cracked. I pulled out my wallet and my SCCA Time Attack competition license fell out. The photographer got excited about shooting my record lap here just 2 months ago. I held out my hand for my keys. Thomas went pale and actually stumbled backward, keys falling from his shaking hands. No, this isn't happening, he muttered, then louder. I'm sorry. I respect women racers. He turned to his friends desperately. Tell her I was kidding. Nobody backed him up. I demolished everyone's times, gapping Thomas by 8 seconds per lap. He didn't even finish his session, just loaded his car while mumbling apologies to Lewis. The friends asked for coaching while Thomas blocked everyone on Instagram. My student driver sticker stays on forever.